Hi, I'm Bruce from S&S Cycle. In this video, we're going to show you how to install a set of S&S bolt-in chain drive cams for 2006 Harley-Davidson Dyna models and all 2007 and later Big Twins. To save time in this video, we've already disconnected the battery and removed the stock cams, cam support plate, and oil pump from this 2006 Harley-Davidson Dyna model. Notice how the tappets are held up out of the way with these handy clips. Why remove the oil pump, you may ask? Well, although some installers will leave the oil pump in place when installing cams, we think it's important to pull the oil pump out and replace the crankcase scavenge port O-ring. Even though this O-ring may appear to be in good shape, you should replace it. First of all, because it's cheap and it's included in the cam installation kit, but mostly because the old one has been exposed to heat and oil for as long as the engine has been together. That can make it stiff and it may not reseal around the oil pump scavenge nipple. The result can be poor scavenging of oil in the crankcase. Excess oil in the crankcase can cause loss of power and even overheating. We don't want that. It's a lot easier to replace this O-ring right now when everything is apart than it will be to go back in and replace it later when you find out you have a problem. Just do it. It's not just shameless self-promotion that this engine will be going back together with the S&S TC3 oil pump and cam plate. It's just that we like the color. This installation covers 2006 Dyna models and all 2007 and later engines. If you have an earlier twin cam 88 engine, the procedure is somewhat different. The cams we're installing are bolt-in cams, which means that they don't require any clearancing and they'll work fine with the stock valve springs. They can even be used with the stock non-adjustable push rods. However, if you're installing higher lift cams in a stock crankcase, you should check the clearance between the cam lobes and the crankcase. The checking is easy. Just plug the cam into the inner cam bearing and turn it 360 degrees. If there's any contact, the area the cam lobe touches must be ground or machined to provide at least 60 thousandths of clearance. That makes the installation a little more difficult because you have to make sure none of the metal chips from the clearancing operation remain in the engine. For the 2007 later engines covered by this video, any cam with more than 585 lift will require that a set of high lift valve springs be installed in the cylinder heads. That makes it a bit more expensive to install high lift cams, not only because of the cost of the springs, but because the cylinder heads must be removed from the engine to install them. You gotta pay to play. But we don't have to do any of that stuff because these are bolt-in cams. When you get an S&S chain drive cam kit, it includes this cam installation kit. The cam installation kit includes a pair of inner cam bearings, and we recommend that you change them. Your new cams have perfect, freshly ground bearing surfaces. It doesn't make sense to run them in old bearings. But if you're replacing a stock cam, there's an even better reason to replace your existing inner bearings. You'll notice that this stock cam bearing does not have a full complement of rollers, but this S&S bearing does. Having more rollers, the S&S bearing can handle greater radial loads than the stock one. And even with stock valve springs, higher lift cams will definitely put more stress on the bearings. There are a number of tools available for removing and installing cam bearings, so follow the manufacturer's instruction for the tool you have when replacing the bearings. It's easiest to assemble the S&S pump and the motor, but regardless of the oil pump you're using, install the scavenge port O-ring in the crankcase, lubricate it with engine oil or assembly lube, and push the inner pump housing into the O-ring, making sure it goes all the way in. Don't put the oil pump O-ring on the oil pump and try and jam it into the case. If the O-ring is damaged or distorted, it won't seal and the oil pump will not scavenge the crankcase efficiently. Follow the installation instructions for whatever oil pump you're installing. Click on the button on your screen for more details about installing an S&S oil pump. Since we're installing S&S bolt-in chain drive cams, the procedure is pretty much like a stock installation. Bolt-in cams are designed to be compatible with all stock valve train components. Stock late model hydraulic chain tensioners can be reused if they're still serviceable. If there's any doubt, they should be replaced. Even though these are S&S Easy Start cams with the built-in compression release, that doesn't change the installation procedure at all. Put the secondary chain over the sprockets of the cams, making sure the timing marks line up. Lubricate the bearing surfaces of the cams and the bearings in the crankcase and the cam support plate with assembly lube. Install the cams in the cam support plate, making sure to keep the timing marks aligned. Install the secondary chain tensioner on the back side of the cam plate. Making sure the cams don't slide out, place the 100 thousandths inch thick spacer over the front cam and install a new snap ring. Install the plate and cams into the crankcase. Apply blue thread locker to the cam plate fasteners. Install them and torque them to 100 inch-pounds in the correct torque sequence. If you don't remember the sequence, it's forged right into the plate. Apply blue thread locker to the 4 oil pump fasteners. Install them loosely. Rotate the engine by turning the rear wheel with the transmission in high gear as you gradually tighten bolts 1 and 2 in the torque sequence until they're snug. This ensures that the oil pump rotors are centered on the pinion shaft. Tighten bolts 3 and 4 until they are snug. Now torque all the bolts to 100 inch-pounds in the torque sequence shown in the instruction sheet and on the cover itself. Install the rear spacer over the rear cam. Install the rear sprocket and hand tighten the mounting bolt. Install the crank sprocket and hand tighten the mounting bolt. Lay a straight edge across the face of the sprockets. If the gap between the straight edge and the lower of the 2 sprockets is more than 0.010 of an inch, a different spacer must be placed behind the rear cam sprocket to bring the sprockets into alignment. Our sprocket alignment is good, so we can proceed. Remove both sprockets. Place the primary cam chain over the rear sprocket and place the crank sprocket inside the chain, making sure the timing marks are lined up. Install this assembly on the rear cam and pinion shaft. Apply red thread locker to the threads of the flanged bolts and a drop of engine oil under the flanges. Install the sprocket locking tool and torque the crankshaft bolt to 25 foot-pounds and the rear cam sprocket bolt to 34 foot-pounds. Install the primary chain tensioner unit and tighten the bolts to 100 inch-pounds. Install the cam cover with a new gasket and torque the bolts to 130 inch-pounds in the correct sequence. Now we can reinstall and adjust the push rods according to the instructions provided by the manufacturer, whether that is Harley-Davidson, S&S, or whoever. For more information about push rod adjustment, click on the button on your screen to see our push rod adjustment video right here on YouTube. As you can see, the installation of the S&S chain drive cams is not really difficult, and it won't be a problem for any competent mechanic familiar with Harley-Davidson Big Twins. However, we don't necessarily recommend this for the average home mechanic. If you don't have the tools or if you're unsure of your ability to install these cams correctly, it may be better to refer this installation to a qualified mechanic. To find an S&S dealer in your area, go to the S&S website at www.sscycle.com and click on the Dealer Locator tab. Thanks for watching.